Have you ever lain still in the dark, eyes wide open, heart heavy as stone, unable to say a single word to anyone? Not because you're weak, but because you've grown used to carrying it all in silence. Some pain has no name. Some wounds never bleed. You still go to work, still smile, still function, yet inside there's a quiet war no one else can see. And the hardest part isn't the weight itself, it's the feeling that you have to carry it alone. If that's where you are right now, this video is for you. Not to soothe you, not to tell you to stay strong, but to hand you a tool that's been around for thousands of years. A tool that's helped people survive war, loss, betrayal, and despair without losing their calm, their agency, or their dignity. Stoicism doesn't promise happiness. What it offers is something deeper, the power to become unshakable. It doesn't teach you to run from pain. It teaches you to face it, move through it, and keep walking, mind steady as a rock in the storm. If you're fighting a silent battle, don't look away. Stoicism isn't here to save you. It's here to remind you the strength to save yourself has been with you all along. Number 1. Pain is part of life, not your fault. Not everyone who's in pain cries. Not everyone who's falling breaks down on the floor. Some pain chooses silence. Like you, like so many others, they quietly brace themselves just to get through the day. Every day feels like a battle against something they can't even name. No one sees it, no one hears it, and sometimes they don't even know how to put it into words. If that's where you are right now, let me tell you this. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling this way. There's nothing wrong with being tired, overwhelmed, or unable to find joy. Those feelings don't mean you're weak or broken. They mean you're human, walking through the roughest stretch of your path. Stoic philosophy doesn't demand that you accept life with cold detachment. It doesn't tell you to stop hurting or stop feeling. What it whispers is this: you can keep going, even when everything inside you wants to give up. Stoicism doesn't teach you to deny your pain. It teaches you not to let pain become the whole story. You know why some people keep going after losses that seem impossible to survive? It's not because they're stronger than you. It's because they've learned not to expect life to be fair. They don't demand that everything makes sense or goes smoothly. They don't give up, but they don't fight reality either. They work with it. They learn to live with the pain without losing themselves in it. Look at Ernest Shackleton, the explorer stranded in Antarctica for nearly 2 years with his crew, surrounded by endless ice. No food, no rescue, no way out. He didn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" He asked, "How many people can I keep alive today?" That's Stoicism in action, not blaming fate, but cooperating with it. No rage, no self-pity, just quiet, determined action. You can choose that too in your own way. Stoicism says, amor fati, love your fate, but it doesn't mean smiling through heartbreak. It simply means stop running from what's happening, because the more you run, the bigger the pain gets. The more you turn your back on your emotions, the deeper they bury themselves, only to come back louder. Buried sadness doesn't turn into peace, it turns into anxiety. Suppressed anger doesn't become strength, it becomes bitterness. The more you deny reality, the more you fracture inside while pretending to be fine, a slow, silent kind of suffering. Only when you stop and face it can you begin to reclaim your power. If today all you can do is survive, that's okay. Sometimes just making it through one more day is already extraordinary, because every time you don't fall apart, even when no one sees, you grow stronger than you were yesterday. And maybe you don't believe that yet, but it's still happening. No one wants to suffer, but in some strange way, it's pain that teaches you real courage. Not the courage to win, but the courage to continue when there's no guarantee you will. And if you need something to hold on to right now, let it be this. Even this feeling will pass. But until it does, you can still live, breathe, move forward, even if it's just one small step. Number 2, even this feeling will pass. There are days when you don't want to hear another word of encouragement, not because you don't need it, but because you've heard it all before, and none of it lifts the weight pressing on your chest. Something is happening inside you, and it feels like being stuck in a room with no exit. If you're feeling tired, confused, or just hollow, I'm not here to tell you to stay strong or it'll be okay. No, I won't say that, because sometimes things aren't okay, and no one can promise when they will be. But there's one thing the Stoics believed, and I do too. Everything passes. Even this feeling. You don't need to do anything grand. You don't need to heal all at once. You just need to remember, your feelings, no matter how overwhelming, are not the whole of your life. They're like a long afternoon rain. You sit through it, not knowing when it'll stop. But it will stop. Not because you prayed for it, but because that's how the world works. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Time is like a river of passing events, and strong is its current. No sooner is a thing brought to sight than it is swept by and another takes its place, and this too will be swept away." Time flows. Everything moves on. The things you once thought would break you, you survived them. Edith Eger, a survivor of Auschwitz, wrote in The Choice, "But from this moment on, I understood that feelings, no matter how powerful, aren't fatal, and they are temporary." She didn't deny pain. She didn't ignore emotion. She survived because she understood it wouldn't last forever. And if she could walk out of the darkest place humanity has known and keep going, then you can take one small step forward too, just one, today. You don't have to believe it right away, but look closely. Haven't there been moments when you thought you'd never get through something? And yet, here you are, still moving. Even if no one saw it, even if no one cheered, you did the hardest thing. You kept going when there was nothing left to hold on to. You don't need to do anything huge right now. Just one small thing. Take a sip of water, stand up and walk a few steps, or look up at the sky. Not to change your life in an instant, but to remind yourself, I'm still here. I'm still moving. And if these words feel like something you can carry with you on those unnamed hard days, don't walk this path alone. Stay with this channel. We don't have miracles, but we do have Stoicism, a small light to help you see the next few steps. Subscribe if you'd like to keep walking with us. If not, just remember this. This feeling won't last forever, and you won't stay stuck in it either. Number 3. Be honest with yourself first. How strange it is, there are things we can't bring ourselves to say to anyone, yet they echo clearly in our minds. We're better at avoiding our emotions than facing them, better at staying silent in a crowd than listening to ourselves in the quiet of the night. But the paradox doesn't lie in loneliness. It lies in this. It's when the noise outside fades that you hear the voice within most clearly. The Stoics didn't fear silence. They used it as a mirror, and mirrors never lie. When Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful Roman emperor of his time, wrote his reflections, he wasn't writing for an audience. There were no readers, no social media, no applause. Just him and an unfiltered honesty with his own soul. He wrote, "Dig within. Within is the wellspring of good, and it is always ready to bubble up if you just dig." There's no advice more raw or powerful than that. Dig deep into yourself, and you'll find a light that never runs out. But you have to do the digging. No one can do it for you. So how do you dig? You don't need to write philosophical essays. Just grab a piece of paper and answer one simple question with brutal honesty. What am I feeling, and what am I avoiding? That question can shift the entire course of your day. It's like wiping the dust off a mirror, not to admire yourself, but to finally see the cracks that have quietly spread. Think back to the last time you felt angry without knowing why. Sad, but couldn't say what for. When emotions go unnamed, they pull the strings from behind the curtain. Journaling is how you unmask the puppet master. During World War II, Anne Frank, a young Jewish girl hiding in an attic for more than 2 years, had no one to confide in. But she wrote, regularly, not for sympathy, but because if she didn't, she felt like she'd shatter from the silence. That wasn't the act of a child. That was the strength of a disciplined mind, the very strength the Stoics revered. And what about you? Are you living a life wound too tight? How many times have you asked, "Why doesn't anyone understand me?" before actually trying to understand yourself? Instead of expecting the world to read your moods, be the first to enter your own inner world. Ask questions, listen, write, not to impress, just to remember who you are. Make writing as habitual as brushing your teeth, just a few lines each day. After a month, you'll notice the difference in how you react, how you name your emotions, and most of all, how you talk to yourself. Because once inner dialogue becomes second nature, you won't feel so alone in the chaos. You'll have a steady companion, reason. And when you finally learn to listen to that inner voice, you'll realize something even more important. You don't owe the world an explanation. Sometimes silence is your loudest declaration, but silence doesn't mean surrender. As you'll soon see, when chosen wisely, silence is one of the most profound forms of strength. Number 4, strength can be quiet. There's a kind of strength the world doesn't see. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't come with grand speeches or dramatic declarations. It lives in the person slumped over a steering wheel in an empty parking lot, who still steps out minutes later to head into work like nothing happened. It's in the eyes of the soldier who returns from war and tells no stories, but whose every gesture proves they've survived the unspeakable. Stoicism teaches us this. Courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes, silence is not the absence of resistance, it's the presence of discernment. You're not silent because you've given up. You're silent because you've learned not to waste your energy on what doesn't deserve it. The most fragile part of you isn't the image you show to the world. It's your inner self, intact and unbroken, even when no one understands what you're carrying. History is filled with quiet strength. Think of Desmond Doss, the American medic in World War II, who refused to carry a weapon because of his faith. They mocked him. No one believed he'd survive the battlefield unarmed, let alone save lives. But in the blood-soaked chaos of Okinawa, Dos pulled more than 75 wounded soldiers to safety, one by one, without a gun, without a single boast. He didn't give speeches, didn't write a memoir, didn't demand recognition. He let silence speak for him. If you're fighting a battle no one sees, you have more in common with him than you think. You don't need a spotlight to prove your worth. You just need to keep pulling one more person, or maybe just yourself, out of the darkest place you know. Quietly, clearly, one step at a time. The world often mistakes silence for weakness, but the silence of someone learning to rise is not surrender. It's the beginning of a different kind of power. Still, steady, unshakable. Try this. Next time you want to explain yourself, to shout so someone understands you weren't wrong, pause. Write. But don't write to complain. Write like someone recording evidence for themselves, no audience needed. That's how you train composure. That's how you stay in control, no matter the chaos outside. Because in the end, silence isn't where you disappear. It's where you reclaim your authority. Not to hide, but to prepare. Not to be heard, but to begin. And eventually you'll realize no one's coming to save you. They're busy wrestling with their own chaos. And you, if you're strong enough to be silent at the right time, are strong enough to set yourself free. But that's a lesson for another time. For now, stay quiet, but don't stay still. Number 5. No one's coming, it's on you. There's something strange about being human. We can live among millions and still feel utterly alone. You might have sat beside someone who knows you deeply, yet still felt like you were sinking into a pit no one else could see. That feeling, silently hoping for a hand to pull you up, can be suffocating. But that very waiting can become a trap. Because the most painful truth isn't that no one saves you. It's realizing no one can. To the Stoics, this isn't pessimism, it's freedom. Stoic philosophy teaches that the moment you wait for someone else to lift you, you've already let go of your inner power. True rescue always begins within, quietly, steadily, with no one watching. It's like a soldier lost deep in the forest. No map, no signal, no comrades. He doesn't sit still, waiting for help. He takes inventory of what he has, finds his bearings, and starts walking, even without knowing exactly where he'll end up. When you expect others to understand, fix, or save you, you put yourself in a passive position. Worse, you hand over control of your inner world to someone who doesn't and can't hold it. Look at Harriet Jacobs, a woman born into slavery in 19th century America. After escaping her enslaver, she lived for 7 years in a cramped attic, too low to stand, too hidden to see daylight. In that darkness, she had no one to rely on. And that's exactly what made her unbreakable. No complaints, no rescue. But she survived and became one of the fiercest voices in the abolitionist movement. Ask yourself, if no one came to help, would I collapse? Or would I finally discover the strength I never knew I had? Instead of searching for someone to understand you, learn to understand yourself. Start small. Sit with your darkest thoughts. Notice what you're waiting for from others and try offering it to yourself. Waiting for validation. Acknowledge your effort today, hoping someone will listen. Give yourself 10 minutes of undistracted presence. No phone, no escape. It's not easy, but it's possible. Maybe some part of you still hopes someone will appear and change everything. but you'll be so much stronger when you let go of that hope. The truth is, no one fully understands you because they don't live inside you. The sooner you accept that, the freer you become. And this kind of freedom is worth more than comfort or empathy. It's the power to stop waiting and start saving yourself. If you've made it this far, it means you are willing to face that loneliness instead of running from it. That matters. Not everyone dares to listen to this for long. If something in this spoke to you, leave a like for yourself and for everyone else fighting their silent battles too. We're only halfway through. The next part goes even deeper. Don't miss it. Number 6. This is training, not punishment. You think life is punishing you, don't you? When bad things keep piling on, when every ounce of effort leads nowhere, when you wake up each morning only to face another day of silent struggle. But what if you saw it differently? The Stoics taught that hardship isn't a curse, it's a test. Not designed to break you, but to build you into someone unbreakable. Pain doesn't exist to crush you. It's like fire refining gold, not burning you to ash, but burning off what's weak. When you're quietly wrestling with your demons, you're not standing still. You're forging yourself hour by hour, minute by minute, even when no one sees it. Like iron in a furnace, what feels like torment today is actually the heat that transforms you from fragile to unshakable. Pain isn't proof you've lost your way. It's the signal that you're breaking through your limits. Think of Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing. She didn't just battle disease and war. She faced a society that believed women belonged only in marriage. She worked to exhaustion, often alone, criticized and ignored. But she never saw it as punishment. She carried on day after day because she understood no sword is ever forged through praise. The truth is, no one's coming to save you, and that's not a tragedy, it's freedom. Because when you stop waiting for someone else, you finally start building real strength. One way to train that muscle daily: do something you don't want to do when no one's forcing you, watching you, or applauding you. Clean that cluttered corner. Finish that task you've been putting off. Stay silent instead of snapping back. That's how you take back control. What's interesting is you won't even notice the change as it happens. Real growth doesn't make a sound. It sinks in slowly, like water shaping stone, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Then one day, something familiar happens, and you catch yourself responding differently. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you've learned how to stand outside the feeling. That's when you move on to the next lesson. Emotions are just ripples on the surface. Beneath them is the part of you you've trained to be steady, silent, and unmoved. Number 7. Emotions shift, your mind remains. Have you ever sat on a bus while it rained outside, and somehow, inside your mind too, everything feels grey? A missed email, a glance that makes you feel invisible, or a simple sentence that lands like a punch to your self-worth. No one sees it. You sit there in silence, but inside, your emotions are screaming. Isn't it strange how just one bad thought, something tiny, can take over your entire mood? It changes how you walk, how you speak, even how you breathe. Stoicism teaches this. Emotions aren't your enemy. They're just visitors. You can open the door to let them in, but you don't have to serve them tea. If you really pay attention, Emotions are just like the weather. Some days are sunny, others are stormy. But you wouldn't let a rainy day make you forget who you are. So why let a passing feeling define your entire identity? Stoics don't suppress their emotions. They allow them to rise, they observe, and then they let them go. Like someone standing at the shore can't stop the waves, but can learn how to stay steady when they come. What's powerful is that stability doesn't come from having no emotions. It comes from not centering your life around them. That's the difference between being swept away and standing your ground. You see it clearly in people living under intense pressure. The ER doctor pulling a 12-hour shift, the entrepreneur who loses everything but keeps moving, the single mother pushed to the edge but still gets up early to cook for her child. They're not superheroes. They just know that if they let emotions decide everything, nothing would remain standing. Most people won't say it out loud, but everyone has lived it. Getting through days when you wanted to quit, not with motivation, but with discipline. Here's a simple way to practice this. Whenever an emotion shows up, don't react immediately. Pause. Name it like you're introducing a guest. This is anxiety. This is anger. This is envy. That won't make the emotion disappear, but it gives you space from it. And sometimes that space is all you need to keep it from swallowing you whole. Even the Bible says in Romans, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." You can't avoid emotions, but you can learn to let them pass without losing yourself in the process. Stoicism reminds us, you can't stop the rain, but you can choose where to stand. When emotions hit, don't assume you need to change how you feel right away. Sometimes wisdom means simply noticing you're under attack and calmly doing what needs to be done anyway. Not because you don't feel anything, but because you refuse to let your feelings define who you are. The real question is, do you want to live like the one holding the reins, or the horse that gets yanked around by every twitch of the mind? And if you think you need to feel okay before doing what's right, then you might be caught in the most common illusion of all. That strength has to come before action. But the truth is, the next lesson is this. You don't have to be fine. You just have to be brave enough not to stop. Number 8. You don't need to be okay to move forward. Some mornings, you wake up and your mind feels like it's falling apart, piece by piece. There's no obvious reason. No big shock, no fresh pain, just a heavy, hollow fatigue that clings to you like a fog that won't lift. That's when the voice in your head starts whispering, you have to feel better before you do anything. That's the trap, the most common one for people silently struggling, the false belief that you need to be okay before you're allowed to move forward. Stoic philosophy rejects this waiting game. It knows the truth. Most of the time, you won't feel ready. And if you wait until you're completely okay, you'll stay stuck in a cycle of hesitation, self-pity, and helplessness. Think of Theodore Roosevelt. He was a sickly, asthmatic child, thin, weak, and often bullied. But he didn't wait to feel strong before he acted. He built his own brutal training regimen to toughen his body and sharpen his mind. He once said, "Do what you can with what you have, where you are." It sounds simple, but it came from someone who never waited for permission from his emotions. And you? Have you ever forced yourself to show up to work, submit that assignment, make that important call while your mind was in chaos? And did you realize you did it even though you weren't okay? Maybe that's the point. Maybe you don't need perfect clarity or peace. Maybe all you need is one small action to break the paralysis. When things feel overwhelming, pick one clear, limited action. Not improve myself, but stand up and fold the laundry. Not be more productive, but reply to one unanswered email. Specific action cuts through emotional fog better than analysis ever will. It's like being lost in the woods. You don't need to redraw the whole map. You just need to look at your feet, pick a direction, and take a single step. And here's the thing. Look closely at wartime leaders, CEOs steering companies through crisis, single mothers holding it all together. None of them were okay when they acted. They were tired, they were afraid, they were overwhelmed, but they didn't stop. Because they understood, emotional stability is not a prerequisite, it's the outcome. So instead of asking, how can I feel okay? Ask, what can I do right now, even if I'm not okay? That answer will give you something solid to stand on in the storm. And when you do begin, even with just one step, don't be surprised if you still feel lost. That's not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's just part of the path. Eventually, after walking in that fog long enough, you'll pause and wonder, where am I even going? What's the point of all this? And if that question is starting to stir inside you, then it's time for another lesson. When life feels meaningless, return to the smallest purpose. Because sometimes, survival isn't about understanding the meaning. It's simply about not giving up, one breath at a time. Number 9. When lost, return to something small. There are moments when you stand in your own familiar room, looking around, the cluttered desk, the pile of unfolded clothes, the half-finished tasks, and nothing sparks the urge to begin. You're not exactly sad, not angry either, just empty. A slow, dull emptiness that lingers like a low-grade fever. Questions begin to form. What am I even doing with my life? Or, when will this feeling go away? But the more you try to think your way out, the more blurred everything becomes. No clear beginning, no end in sight. Stoic philosophy teaches that when everything feels overwhelming, you don't have to solve the entire equation of your life. You only need to solve the part in front of you today. Not the whole problem, just one small calculation. A worn-out office worker returns home after a long day, too drained to do anything but stand silently by the sink. The mess remains. Unfinished deadlines, a chaotic room, a scrambled mind. But he starts by washing a single glass. A small act, barely a few minutes, but it brings a sense of order. And from that order he begins to pull himself back into the present. A young man, lost in his career, unsure what he's even living for, watches his days pass by in a fog. He can't bring himself to write a resume, doesn't know where to start looking for a new job. But he wipes down his desk. It doesn't change his life, but it clears a space, enough for him to sit down. Then he opens his laptop, type a few lines. Not to finish a big goal, but to remind himself he hasn't given up. Stoicism doesn't demand that you march forward with clarity and confidence through the chaos. It only asks that you move, not in the right direction, just forward. If you can't clean the whole room, fold a shirt. If you can't finish the plan, write down one thing you can do today. If you can't feel better, sit up and drink a glass of water. Simple, ordinary, but powerful enough to break the loop of paralysis. Have you ever tried standing up in the middle of that emptiness? Not to change the world, just to prove you still have control over your body. That act, so small no one might notice, is the beginning of a return. And in the end, when you think you're the only one quietly carrying this weight, you'll realize many others have folded the blanket, wiped the desk, started the rice cooker, not for anyone else, but for themselves. They've fallen too, but they began again with the smallest step. That's why they're still here, just like you. Number 10. Even the strong have fallen silently. Something strange happens when you suffer alone. You start to believe you're the only one who's weak, the only one who's falling apart. Silence swallows every sound inside you, and slowly you begin to think you're the only person lost in a world full of people who seem okay. But take a moment to imagine things differently. Napoleon failed miserably in Russia and was exiled. Abraham Lincoln endured a string of political and personal defeats before he made history. Nelson Mandela spent nearly 30 years in prison, his loneliness invisible to the world, which only saw the glory that came later. Every one of them, before being celebrated, had fallen. They wrestled quietly in the dark, unnoticed. Stoicism doesn't teach us to deny pain. It teaches us to walk through it with our heads held high. Epictetus once wrote, "The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it." Have you ever wondered what would have happened if those people gave up when no one was watching? If Mandela had quit in year 13? If Lincoln had accepted that he was meant to fail? Just because no one sees your struggle doesn't make it any less real. It's in that silence that you are being forged, like steel in fire. Every morning you wake up when you don't want to. Every day you keep moving even when you're drained. That is real strength. No spotlight, no audience. And maybe the very thing that makes you feel alone is what connects you to the greatest people who ever lived. They all had moments when no one came to save them, and they stood back up anyway. You may not be leading a country or starting a revolution, but you're fighting to stay on your feet, and that's no small fight. You don't need to overhaul your life to rise again. Sometimes it's enough to fold the blanket tossed on the chair, to wash the dish from yesterday, or to get out of bed even when your head feels heavy. These small acts are how you tell the world and yourself that you haven't surrendered. Every simple task is a quiet reclaiming of your spirit, a firm step toward control. You don't need to feel okay to act. It's the action that lifts you out of the darkness. You are not alone. You are standing among the strongest souls alive, the ones who once fell in silence and rose without applause. And if they could do it, so can you. Don't wait for someone to tell you you're worthy. Start now. Take the next step. No spotlight, no cheers, just you. We've just explored 10 lessons from Stoic philosophy, 10 quiet lifelines for those fighting their battles in the dark. These lessons aren't abstract theories, they're inner compasses, sharpened over thousands of years. They remind us that pain isn't failure, emotions aren't enemies, and silence doesn't mean you're alone. That you might not be okay yet, but you can still move forward. That real strength is often forged in the unseen moments. In a world full of noise and pressure, the fact that you're still standing, quietly, steadily, is nothing short of extraordinary. Stoicism doesn't make life easier, it makes you stronger. And if there's one thing you should take away from this video, it's this. You don't need anyone's approval to be worthy. The simple act of being here, quietly refusing to give up, that alone is a victory. If something in this spoke to you, share your thoughts below. Let me know what you're facing, or just that you're still holding on. And if you want to keep walking this path of quiet strength and grounded resilience, hit subscribe. Because every day we'll build another layer of armor for the mind, not to hide from life, but to walk straight into it with clear eyes and an unshakable heart.